Hello everyone and welcome to the Comfy Couch Podcast, where we always make room for one more, and today we have a special guest, Scott from Scott. How you doing today, buddy?
Pretty good. Had a kind of stressful drive home through a lot of traffic, but I am happy to be here talking about Pokemon now.
Sweetness. Talking about, before we go into all the Pokemon questions, I'm going to ask you a simple question, like, where did the name Scott's Thoughts for your YouTube channel come from?
I actually made the channel back in 2016 because I wanted to make top 10 videos where I would share my thoughts about like my favorite Kanto Pokemon and my favorite Johto Pokemon, or like I would rank all the regions and talk about why I liked one more than the other. So it was originally supposed to be sort of like a video essay channel. Turns out after downloading Premiere Pro and trying to edit some videos, I realized that I did not have what it took to be a content creator. So I just never uploaded any videos, and the channel sat until like 2020 when I was like, I saw a couple of J Rose's and my Drybreads videos and I was like, hey, I might as well make a video like that and just see how it goes. So I never changed the channel name. I just left it because I didn't think anyone would watch.
Okay. Now, this is going to sound like a weird question, but what was Pokemon like for you before starting up your channel? Like, you were talking about doing top 10 lists and all that, but what was, like, your big inspiration from Pokemon? Like, what drew you to the series?
Well, I'm not sure how old you are, but I'm 31, and so I grew up during the, like, heyday of the Pokemon mania of the 90s. So I just grew up playing the games. I loved them for the longest time. Sorry, what was the question? I'm just like...
No, it's fine. I was just asking, like, what drew you to the series? Like I grew up there in the 90s, boom, too, for Pokemon. So I just, like, was it the cute animal aspect of Pokemon? Was it the anime? Was it the video games? Like, what drew you to the series overall?
At first, I didn't have a Game Boy, so my only way of like figuring out what Pokemon was talking to friends at school. I didn't have cable TV growing up, so I never saw the anime. My parents didn't buy me any of the cards. People just started talking about Pokemon at school, and they were mentioning all of these different creature names, and I was like, that sounds interesting. So I asked my friends a bunch of questions, and they would explain things to me, like Charizard is this like fire dragon, and it can breathe fire, and it can fly around. Blastoise is a turtle that has cannons. And I was like, this sounds awesome. So I had to convince my parents to buy me a pack of Pokemon cards. And I was actually looking through my collection of Pokemon cards just earlier today, and I saw the Scyther. I got a Scyther in my very first, Holo Scyther in my very first Pokemon card pack. So that was like my first experience with Pokemon, and then ever since then I just kind of got obsessed. I don't know, I think the monster collecting aspect of it really is like something that I enjoy. I really enjoy collecting things, and so I'm kind of collecting playthrough videos on my channel now. I mentioned it before, but I was watching J Rose and my Drybread, so they directly influenced the exact style of solo challenges that I'm doing on the channel now. But long before that, I basically did solo challenges myself as a kid. I never had a team of 6 Pokemon. I would basically just try and beat the game with one Pokemon. At first it was Butterfree, and then later on I was playing blue version, just beating it with like each one of the starters. As I got older, when I came back to the series after playing X and Y, I downloaded an emulator and started playing Pokemon Yellow again, and I would replace my starter, and I specifically remember doing a Kabuto challenge as well as a Shelter challenge. So I feel like solo challenges are just sort of like in my DNA. It seems to me like the most fun way to play the game, and I don't like spending a lot of time doing something, so I love the speed running aspect of like trying to get through the game as fast as possible with a very specific constraint, which is I can just use one Pokemon.
Okay, cool. Now, this is counterintuitive to like being a solo playthrough, but what would your Pokemon team be if you lived in the Pokemon world?
Whenever I answer this, I actually have a desktop background on my computer, which has a bunch of the Pokemon. I asked Sarina Vail, who does art for me on my channel, I asked them to draw me a picture of myself with a team of bug Pokemon, because I really like bug Pokemon. I think it is because I like to root for the underdog, and the fighting type looks too much like humans, so as a result, I'm just like, the bug type is my favorite type. This picture has a team of 6, of course, Butterfree and Venomoth. Butterfree is the former channel mascot, and then Venomoth is the current current channel mascot. And aside from them, I chose a bunch of Generation 1 and 2 bugs, so Beedrill, Heracross, Parasect, and Ariados. Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, I think if you gave me a later generation Pokemon, that I would definitely pick Golisopod. I love that thing. It's so cool, but I'm not playing any Generation 7 on my channel yet, so for now, Golisopod is just, it's not really included in any of my art.
I will tell you though, just for myself, I did a playthrough challenge with bug types in Alola, and I did use Golisopod to win the Pokemon League, so it is definitely strong enough to carry a team, so good on that, I guess.
It's so good.
Yeah. It's a weird Pokemon too, because it's built to be defensive, strangely enough. I didn't know if you knew that or not. But...
Yeah, and it has like the funniest ability ever. Emergency Exit is just like, I love how it goes from Wimp Out and then turns into Emergency Exit. When it becomes like really intimidating, it's just so great.
I always think of it like it's supposed to be like the cool kid in school that's like supposed to be the bully, but as soon as you punch it back, it's like, oh, don't hurt me.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's such a weird Pokemon, but I do love it. And also, where would you live in the Pokemon world if you could choose? Where would you live?
I tend to not like it being very hot. I like my air conditioning and colder climate. It's because I'm from Canada. So I would probably live somewhere like Snow Point City and in Sinnoh.
You know what, same. I'm going to give you a high five on that one, same here. This one goes back to the playthrough challenges a little bit, but what Pokemon surprised you the most in your playthrough challenges in a good way, and which one did in a bad way?
Okay, so when I was initially planning out all the videos that I wanted to do in Generation 2, I looked at Smeargle, and Smeargle has some of the worst stats in like the whole game. And then I realized it only gets the move Sketch, and the Johto the Generation 2 learn sets are not known for being particularly good. So it's like, I'm not going to be able to sketch anything good. I have terrible stats. This thing is going to be absolutely trash. Then when I ended up doing the playthrough, I was so surprised because the ability to sketch moves is way better. Like, it really makes up for Smeargle's lack of stats. So Smeargle, I think, is the Pokemon that surprised me the most. I expected it to be way more painful. It was actually really fun to play with, and it performed a lot better than I was expecting. The Pokemon that surprised me in a bad way is Seal. I got so frustrated using Seal against the champion in Pokemon Yellow. His Magneton is just brutal, and Seal needs to level up way too high to get consistency. I just could not find a strategy that I was satisfied with, and that left me, I was like so frustrated and like tilted that I had to stop playing the challenge for a week and then come back to it later just to finish it. So yeah, Seal, that playthrough really like sticks with me. There have been a few other frustrating ones, like Coughing was really challenging. Ditto was brutal in Generation 2, and Magikarp was absolutely awful in Generation 1. But of all of them, Seal is the one that actually frustrated me the most, because I expected it to be decent, and then it was really bad when it got to the champion.
What do you think makes a Pokemon like good at solo challenges? Is it like their level up curve, their moveset? Like, what do you think really puts a Pokemon in like a good position to do well in those?
I would say if I had to design like the perfect Pokemon for a solo challenge, number one, it needs the medium slow growth rate. The medium slow growth rate is by far the best growth rate. I think having either a setup move or a sleep inducing move can be very important. Both of those moves, like if you have a setup move or a sleep move, you can get through challenging fights by either boosting your stats or by putting the opposing Pokemon to sleep. So like say there's a battle and there's like one Pokemon that's really hard, like Jasmine Steelix. It's tricky to knock it out. So you just put that Pokemon to sleep and then knock it out. Or you just set up on the Magnemites beforehand and then sweep the Steelix. So I would say like some combination of medium slow growth rate and then setup move or sleep inducing move. That in general are like the main things I think that make Pokemon really good in the solo challenges. Also just in general, having a high attack stat and a decent speed stat. Doesn't need a really good speed stat like Jolteon or Electrode, way too much speed. Like you need like base 70 to base 90, and then you're pretty much gonna outspeed everything because of stat experience as well as badge boosts. So like medium slow growth rate, sleep inducing move or setup move, and then good attacking stat and decent speed.
Interesting, because whenever I'm watching those, mainly yours and other like J-Rose, it feels like the glass cannons seem to do very well. Like Scizor and everything like that, they seem to do very well in solo challenges, it seems like. So I was just wondering if it was like a glass cannon or something like that.
Yeah, I think glass cannons do pretty well, but I would actually rather have a little bit of bulk. Like if I can be a little bit more well-rounded than a pure glass cannon, I'm gonna be happy. Like for example, Kangaskhan versus Tauros is a good example of that. Tauros just hits really hard, but it has a slow growth rate, whereas Kangaskhan has a little bit more HP and it has the medium slow growth rate. And in that case, I prefer Kangaskhan over Tauros, which is like if you play Generation 1 competitive Pokemon, you're like, what is this guy talking about? Because like Tauros is the king and Kangaskhan is awful. So anyways, for solo challenges, I guess it's different.
Yeah. Well, as somebody who does dabble in competitive, sometimes whenever I hear somebody dissing like a Pokemon like let's say Garchomp or something, and they go, oh, it's terrible in solo challenges, I'm like, this Pokemon's the freaking Swiss Army knife of Pokemon. And then they're like, oh, but it does terrible in these areas. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, pseudo-legendaries have really good stats, but it tends to be the case that pseudo-legendaries are like, at least in my experience, they're like not quite good enough in terms of their stats and move pools to like overcome the slow growth rate. Whereas actual legendary Pokemon like Ho and Lugia are good enough to overcome the slow growth rate. But Pokemon that have the medium slow growth rate are still so good that they end up getting times that are fairly comparable.
What is your favorite piece of music from the games, like if you have one?
Really short answer for this one. The champion theme from Red, Blue, and Yellow. I love it. It's just like every time I hear it, I go back to the first day that I fought the champion as a kid, and when I beat him, it was like the weirdest feeling of like, wow, I actually did this. And then the end screen showed up, and I was like, no, I want to keep playing the game. Please don't tell me that I have to stop now.
Two weird things about Pokemon for me anyway was one, I never did have any friends in school that played Pokemon besides me, which was very weird, especially during the 90s, because you think, oh, the 90s Pokemon boom, everybody has a Link cable, everybody has a Game Boy, but nobody in my school had a Game Boy except for me. It was so strange. So anything like trade Pokemon I could not have access to until much later in life. And the Cerulean Cave bit, one of the weirdest things that I remember was the guy who stands in front of the cave. If you remember the NPC that's like right there in front of it, I thought that the cave like hole was his hair, so I just thought he had like a really giant afro-y hair.
I actually I made like an Aerodactyl playthrough that was all about nostalgia, and I got so many people commenting on my video saying that. They were like, either he has a giant afro or he has one of those like black hats that the like guards that guard the queen or the king, I guess, those hats that they have. It's like so funny. And then like he disappears and you're like, oh, that wasn't his hair, that was actually just the cave.
That's what I thought. Like he was like this weird guard just in front of this cave, and I'm like, why are you there, buddy? What are your favorite locations in the game? Like talking about like weird things, like what is your like favorite locations?
I gotta say, in Generation 3, as a kid, I loved playing Generation 3. I had so much fun. But by the end of the generation, I really didn't enjoy it anymore, because like a lot of my friends who I used to talk Pokemon with at school had like decided the games weren't cool anymore. So I kind of like left Generation 3 with a sour taste in my mouth. So like when I came back to them, I wasn't really expecting to have a good time. But one thing that I have really grown to appreciate now is the Generation 3 aesthetics. There is that one route after Fort Tree City with all of the little puddles on the ground, and you can see the clouds going by in the puddles, and like the water is just really still, and there's like tall grass. I don't know, that place is just so beautiful. I try and put it in all of my Generation 3 videos just because I like the aesthetics so much.
And it's the only place where you can see clouds in the game, which I still think is very strange.
Yeah, it like gives you this sense of like the world being this like 3D place where there is stuff that's off screen that you can't see, whereas there isn't any other location in the game where you feel like there's like a sky, but this gives you the sense that like, yeah, there is the sky, it's being reflected, you just can't see it when you're playing the game.
One thing that I never did manage to do in Generation 3 that one of my friends did, and I'm still surprised he was able to do it, was fish up a Feebas. I am still beyond shocked that he was able to fish that thing up. He's just like, oh, you just gotta do it like this. I'm like, that's way too much effort for me.
Yeah, it just takes forever. I back when I came back to the game, I tried to complete the Pokedex in Pokemon Emerald, and this was like maybe 2013, 2014, and I did successfully catch a Phoebus. It took forever. It was really annoying, but they do exist.
I can't imagine being a shiny hunter for that thing. That would drive me insane.
Well, like, the way it works is, like, once you find the patch, they're pretty common. So you just, like, can keep fishing in the same patch and keep catching them, but it's not actually that bad to shiny hunt. It's just time-consuming to find the patch originally.
One thing that I always do with Pokemon, and I know it's a fantasy world, so I should never do it, but I always like to try to apply like a real world logic to like the creature, like, oh, it has to do this in order to be like this. And again, talking about Phoebus, one of the funniest things that I thought was that it was supposed to be like the ugly duckling story. It's supposed to be like a ugly fish that turns into a beautiful mermaid creature. And all I can think about is you feeding it this Pokeblock, and it's just like, am I pretty enough yet? Nope, not pretty enough yet. You gotta keep like trying to put me.
Yeah, I have a story about that because I didn't plant berries correctly in Generation 3, and so what ended up happening is I ran out of all the berries that you had to make. I think it's the purple Pokeblocks. I ran out of all the berries that you needed to make those Pokeblocks, and then I could not feed my Phoebus anymore, so I just could never evolve it. It's very frustrating.
To me, it's like putting makeup on a pig. To use an analogy, it's just like, am I pretty enough? Like, nope, not pretty enough yet. We gotta get you some more makeup and make you look pretty. It's such a weird thing.
Yeah, but Milotic is really good, so it's worth it.
It is. I managed to get one in Generation 7, so...
Thankfully, they made the evolution method easier.
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially for people who finally get access to trading, so yay for me. Can you describe a moment that happened in like your playthrough challenges or off playthrough moments that you describe as like pure Pokemon? Like you're like down to the wire, you're fighting the good fight against like the champion or something, you finally KO and like 0 health remaining, but like something that you feel like is like a pure anime moment in like the games for yourself?
Yeah. I don't remember exactly what happened, but the end of my first Ekans playthrough, I figured out very quickly that I had to hit Fissure. I think it was against the Sandslash and then the Executor, and it had to knock both of them out. In Generation 1, Fissure has a flat 30% accuracy, so this is very unlikely. And I'm pretty sure it was the case that I had to get it first turn against both of them. I ended up getting some the most astronomical luck in that fight, and I got through. It felt like, at that point when I played it, it felt like the best luck I'd ever got on the channel. So that was an anime moment. There was a reverse moment where I was defeated with Lugia, the Feraligatr. I live streamed this. And like the Feraligatr, I think I got paralyzed, and then it para-flinched me like 3 times in a row and knocked Lugia out. It's so frustrating. So that was the bad one. Also, just in terms of like feeling like an anime moment, when I actually beat the game in Pokemon Yellow with only a Magikarp, that has to be like, I know that it wasn't with my regular solo challenge rules, but like the feeling that I got just like finally getting through the game after I played with I think I played 20 hours with the terrible fish. And when I finally beat the champion and saw that like end game screen, I was just like, yes, I actually did it. We made it happen.
What I was saying is, I'm just imagining like you're walking up to Lance with and he's got all his powerful dragons behind him, and he's like, what does the challenger have for me to fight? What is his grand Pokemon? And you come out with your fish, and he's like, are you serious?
Yeah, a fish and like infinity X items. It's like, go Magikarp, X attack, X attack, X attack, X attack.
He's like, are you going to do anything? And you're like, exactly, X speed. He's like, are you serious? I don't know if you know this or not, but in Generation 8, they finally gave him access to Hydro Pump, which I think is hilarious.
Yeah, I have heard about the Hydro Pump Magikarp. I got some requests for people were like, hey, you should play with the Hydro Pump Magikarp in the yellow version, so maybe one day we will get a Hydro Pump Magikarp playthrough, but I think I have to take at least like 2 years off from playing this fish, and then maybe in like 2025 I'll come back and do another try. There is also a Bubble Magikarp. You can trade it back from Generation 2, and then it has Tackle, Splash, and Bubble.
I didn't know that. I know about an event Magikarp that had Dragon Rage, but I did not know about Bubble. That's cool.
Yeah, the Dragon Rage one was the one that I used for my solo challenge. J-Rose proved this a while ago, but you can't get by Pokemon Tower because there's no way to beat the ghosts. It would be possible if Magikarp could learn Bide, but if without Bide, you only have Splash and Struggle deals normal damage. I guess Splash, Tackle, and Struggle, and the only type of damage you can deal is normal damage. So you can't hit ghosts because Struggle doesn't deal typeless damage in Generation 1.
One thing that I always thought was the case, but someone told me it wasn't, which I thought was surprising, was in Mount Moon, the guy you buy the Magikarp off of. I thought that would be like a gift Pokemon, like you'd get like extra SP, like how you do with like trade Pokemon in the game. But someone told me no, that's not the case, and I thought, well, that's a rip-off.
Yeah, it's just a regular Magikarp.
Because I don't know if it was intentional, but the guy who sells Magikarp in the anime, I thought it was the same guy in the game. The guy who swindles James out of it. He's just like, I give you this Magikarp.
I think it's kind of implied that that's supposed to be the case, but I don't know.
Yeah. I wish there was more people like him in the game, because that would make it funnier. Just like random cities, and he's like, hey, you want to buy this rare Pokemon off me? And it's like the most ludicrously common Pokemon, like a Pidgey or a Rattata. I think that would be kind of funny.
Yeah, they should put him in every generation. He just sells you a terrible fish. Like Generation 2, he sells you another Magikarp. Then Generation 3, he sells you a Phoebus. I guess that would make Phoebus actually way less rare, so maybe not. But
no, in Generation 5, he gives you a Basculin because there's no Magikarp in Generation 5.
Yeah, that thing. I trained a Basculin when I played Generation 5 for the first time because I thought it was going to evolve into something cool, and then it didn't, and then I looked it up at like level 50, which just doesn't evolve. I'm like, what? What is this? They just made a fish, and that's like the regional fish, and then they didn't let it evolve into anything?
Well, lucky for us, it did evolve finally in Generation 8.5, if you want to consider Legend Arceus its generation. Talking about Legends Arceus, what do you think about the newer Pokemon games, if you don't mind me asking?
That's a good question. Honestly, I used to say that I really like the newer Pokemon games. They're not the same as the old games, but I really enjoy them. My opinion has been slowly changing, though, because when I came back to play Pokemon, I loved X and Y. I had so much fun playing that game. I tried to complete the Pokedex. I actually eventually did manage to do it, but it took me like 3 years. There are so many Pokemon in that game. Then I played Sun and Moon, and I loved those games. Those are some of my favorite games in the series just for a story playthrough. I know there's so many cutscenes making them basically unplayable for repeated attempts, but yeah, I really like Sun and Moon as games and as stories. I like all the new Pokemon introduced in both X and Y and Sun and Moon. However, after Sword and Shield, I really did not like Sword and Shield. I think I played the game. I've played it twice, maybe. I don't even know if I completed my second playthrough. I just didn't find it that engaging. And then Legends Arceus, my fiance played that game so much. I played it a bit, but I had to work on the channel a lot, so I haven't had as much time to play Legends Arceus or Scarlet and Violet, just because I've been spending most of my Pokemon time playing videos for the challenge, for the channel.
Because, my opinion, like I'm like you, I guess, in a weird way, because I came back from, I didn't play at all Generation 5. I know that's heresy for a lot of people, but I didn't play it when it first came out because I was done. I got through Generation 4. I felt like I beat the hardest champion. I just put up my Poke hat and retired for a little bit. And then I started watching competitive Pokemon from Generation 6, and I thought, wow, this is really cool. This is something I've never experienced with Pokemon before. So I got back into Pokemon through Generation 6, and then when I played through Generation 7, I really enjoyed a lot of the Pokemon in Generation 7. And I played quite a bit of Sword and Shield. I don't think it's as bad as some people, but I do feel like it's fine. I like Scarlet and Violet the first time playing it. I haven't done a second playthrough of it yet, but I do want to eventually. And Legends Arceus is by far one of my favorites. So.
Yeah, I think like of the newest 3 games, I think that Legends Arceus is by far the strongest one, and then I think that like Scarlet and Violet is maybe second, and Sword and Shield is like a distant third place. I agree with you, it's not like absolutely terrible, but like they did make Galarian Meowth, and I hate that thing. That thing is one of my least favorite regional forms. When I first saw it, I just stopped playing. I looked at my fiance, she looked at me, we just sat there in disbelief for a little little while. Why does Meowth need so many forms? We need a Venomoth form. Like, let's be real. Game Freak, please, new Venomoth form.
Well, one thing that my mom, when I showed my mom, because I still live with my parents, and I showed her like Drillarian Meowth, she thought it had rabies. It's a bushy fur. She's like, why's the cat got rabies? I'm like, I don't know why the cat's got rabies, Mom. But funny story with Legends Arceus, at least for me anyway. I don't know if your fiance had like a similar thing happen with her, but when I was playing the game for the first time, I was going around the map and catching all the alpha Pokemon. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about by that, but the bigger Pokemon. Yeah. But when I caught them, it seemed like every single one I caught was a girl, that had the female icon. So every single time I ran into one, I called it Big Mama. I'm like, I'm getting another Big Mama.
Yeah, I also did a similar thing. Like, I just ran around and tried to fight all of the alpha Pokemon because it was so much fun being able to encounter a Pokemon that's just massively over leveled and can like knock your Pokemon out in one hit. That felt really fun, as well as the fact that when you black out, you just don't get sent back to the center. Like, you have to run away. That would like literally run away, which was like really fun. I wish they had kept some of those mechanics for Scarlet and Violet. It feels like they did all the innovation and then they just decided like, no, we're gonna walk some of it back and give you a more like traditional Pokemon experience. And like, I'm not sure why they are being so tentative with just keeping stuff that is working really well from previous games. Like, leave the ball mechanic from Legends Arceus. It was really good. I'm so frustrated that they took it out in Scarlet and Violet. Anyways,
two mechanics I wish Legends Arceus would have translated over to Scarlet and Violet was the bar throwing, like you talked about, because that's sneaking up on a wild Pokemon and catching it like that. I feel like it's so fun. And the status conditions, I don't know. One thing that I liked that Legends Arceus did was that each status condition wasn't like a permanent effect on the Pokemon. It could be overridden with another one. Because my one of my Pokemon got paralyzed, and then a second later it got put to sleep by another Pokemon. And I was like, oh, that's very cool. The status effects override at each other. And I thought that would be great for competitive, because that incentivizes, like, let's say Flame Orb on a Guts Pokemon can be overwritten with a sleep. So
yeah, and like all the statuses also are on timers, so they eventually wear off, which I also really like. That would make solo challenges easier, maybe less interesting, but easier if like eventually I just knew paralysis would like expire. Whereas in this case, it's like once you get paralyzed in Generation 1, your speed is just ruined for the rest of the battle. Gosh, that status condition. It's so good.
Yeah. Well, like one status condition that they changed back in the Scarlet and Violet was Freeze, because in Legends Arceus it became Frostbite, and I thought Frostbite was a way better status condition than Freeze, but now we're back to Freeze.
Freeze is by far the least interesting status condition. You just get frozen and then you're like, yep, this Pokemon's useless. Whereas Frostbite is actually interesting because I think it cuts your special attack. That's so interesting. Like, it's basically a special version of Burn. Like, I feel like we need more of that. Whereas we do not need more of like, oh, it used Ice Beam and now I lose. That's not very interesting.
That's just my opinions on the newer games, but now I'm going to ask you some YouTube questions, if you don't mind. What made you decide to share your adventures on YouTube? Like, I know there's you can do it through like Facebook, or you could put it on Vimeo. What made you decide to put like your adventures on YouTube of all things?
Well, like, I think YouTube is just the best platform for long-form video. I could have decided to make like a TikTok, but I tend to not consume very much short-form content. I tend to watch mostly videos that are like 1 hour or longer, and I'm quite frustrated usually when my creators come out with shorter stuff. I like to be able to put something on and just like really sink into it for an extended period of time and not need to make a choice about what I'm going to watch next, that sort of thing. So that's I think YouTube, just like, I spend a lot of time on YouTube myself consuming long form content. Like, for instance, I've watched like Shay May's 7-hour Omega Ruby video like 3 times. I love that video. One day I hope that I will make something that is that big and well put together, but I'm still training to be the very best. So I think YouTube is great for long form content. I just chose it because I use the platform a lot myself. It's been really good to me. I would highly recommend people to make YouTube content.
Most of the time you put out like 1 to 2 videos a week, and I feel like that's very admirable, especially with solo challenges and how time consuming they are. What does your production timeline usually look like for you?
I'm probably going to talk about this for way too long because I spend a lot of time thinking about this. When I started the channel, it took me roughly 7 days to make a video. I was obviously working at the same time. Now I'm just doing YouTube full time, but it would take me about 7 days to get a video together, and my videos were like 20 to 30 minutes long. Like a 35-minute video was really long back then. Since then, I've tried to make my production process as efficient as possible, so using software to automate as many steps along the way as is possible. I also I have a video editor now, so he is doing the majority of the video editing on all my videos. I do some preliminary video editing, and then I do all of the final details at the very end. And I change anything that I don't like that he's done, which is becoming less and less now that he's really good. We've been working together for almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years in November. So my production process right now, it looks like first I have to decide on a schedule. So I actually have sat down and I wrote out my schedule for all of 2023 and all of 2024. So I have a sense for like which video is coming next and why that video is coming next, because I don't want to get to like the end of a region where I only have like 3 Pokemon left over and they're all really boring Pokemon. So I had to plan out into the future to make sure that when we get to the final video in a region, it's going to be a really interesting video, and so that like the 5 or 10 videos before that video kind of like build the tension and amp up the storyline. So I'm planning things with the end in mind, and so I have to plan quite far out into the distance in order to pull that off. So I have a timeline then, which is like next week is going to be, I think, Breloom in Generation 3. So then I'll sit down to record it, and usually I record videos like months in advance. So Breloom, which will release next weekend, I recorded in April, and it is now July. So I record like 2 to 4 months in advance the footage. Then the footage gets sent to a second video editor that I have. He works like a couple hours a week. He cuts it up and basically like isolates all the moments, like the gym battles, all of the important battles, that sort of thing. Maybe moments where I make silly mistakes and we might want to highlight that. And then I come along, I go through the footage again, and I write like a point form script. This usually takes me like 2 to 3 hours. And then after I have the point form script, I go back in and I improvise all of the voiceover going off of my point form notes. This usually for like a 45-minute video will take me somewhere between 2 to 3 hours to get all of the audio recorded. And then I send the audio with the footage that's like kind of pre-cut to my video editor, Sean, and then he assembles it with graphics and the footage and all of my voiceover, times everything, so retimes all the battles so that all the narration lines up with all of the visuals. And then after he has it, then, so that's usually like, he's usually working on it like 1 to 2 weeks before the video comes out. Then I will take it back, review it, pass on any changes to him if he has to make some additional changes, and then I'll make my final changes, render the video. Sometimes I'm toying around with not doing any review anymore because I haven't been catching the things that I want to catch in the review step. So sometimes I do review. If not, then I'll just upload it. It's usually uploaded like 2 to 3 days in advance, and then it premieres on Saturdays.
Here's one thing that I noticed about your videos as opposed to like J-Rose. You have like a layout showing all like the stat buffs, the Pokemon's growth rate, its stats is like a spreadsheet, and like the Pokemon that you're facing stats. Is that mainly for the audience to know what's going on, or is that for you specifically to know what's going on? Like, does that help you more, or does that help the audience more?
Well, it comes out of frustration because when I was watching Madrybread and J-Rose's videos, I just got really frustrated having to constantly tab out, open Bulbapedia up, and look the move pool up. Like, I just want the information there so that when I'm watching the video, I can see the moves the Pokemon learns and then go like, yeah, maybe he should do this. I feel like I want the viewer, when they watch my video, to just be able to like never need to tab out and look for information elsewhere. That's my goal. and I'm not anywhere near close providing enough information or providing enough information in a clear enough way for the viewer to never have to tab out. So like, for instance, I have the idea, like, if I learn a new move, I want a little pop-up to appear on the screen that describes that move in the generation that I'm currently playing, and maybe gives some trivia, like in generation 1 and 2, low kick has base 50 power and a 30% chance to flinch. Starting in generation 3, it was changed to deal damage based on the opponent's weight. Like, that's an interesting fact. I don't want to say that every single time I learn low kick in a playthrough. It would be nice if there was just an automated little like graphic that showed up and gave people that information when I learn the move. So I think overall it's more for the viewers. I want people that are watching the content to like see the information and be able to like quickly make decisions about strategy or ask intelligent questions, or not have to like tab out to Bulbapedia. It does help me obviously when I'm doing playthroughs, and yeah, I'm actually working right now on a release version of my Generation 1 overlay, so it will be hopefully available to the public maybe this weekend, like Friday, like first week in July. So I'm hoping that I'm going to get the software out there for everyone else to use. So if you want to do a Generation 1 playthrough and have all that information available to you, you will be able to do it.
That's very cool. This is like a very general question, but where do you see yourself in like 6 months?
I don't know. I feel like it can't go up forever. Right now, it's felt kind of like just slowly it's creeping up over and over and over. Like sub count and view count and all that stuff is just keep going up, which is great. But it can't go up forever. I don't know how long. 1 year from now, I tend to not focus on metrics too much, is what I'm trying to say. Like, I look at my videos, as long as they're doing like, if every one of my videos does 40 to 50,000 views, I am happy. I'm a happy man. That means I can keep making Pokemon content for a living. I can keep paying Sean and Sarina and a few other people to make stuff for the channel, and I can pay for things like my wedding. That's like, that's all. I only want simple things. So just that amount of views and I'm happy. But where do I see myself a year from now in terms of like the actual content? That's what's much more interesting for me. And I think I will be closing in on recording some of the last Pokemon Yellow playthroughs, solo playthroughs, at this time next year. I'll probably be like 10 to 20 Pokemon away from finishing the decks in terms of what I've recorded. And then there will be about 6 months remaining of releases until I get to the end of the Pokemon Yellow decks.
Sweet. Can't wait to see them all. Gotta play them all. We're gonna figure out today. But you're talking about like your artist and everything. I just want to bring this to your attention. I don't know if she told you or not, but your commission artist, I got her to do us a commission art for the my channel, so that your channel art will be featured on my channel for the interview and everything. So that way it's very much catered to you and everything like that. I don't know if you knew about that. I just figured I'd let you know.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. They did mention it to me. That's great. It's so cool. I really want to get like as much work out there for artists as well, because I think that like the Sugimori art is beautiful and I love it, especially the old watercolor stuff. It's just so cool seeing like different trainers brought to life and different Pokemon in new poses and new avatars drawn. That stuff, I feel like it breathes new life into these old games, and so I really just I love that part of the process. Like finding a trainer that is frustrating to defeat and then going like, all right, what is this guy? Like, we got to give him some sweet art. Like the Hypno Sandwich is getting art very soon. He's got Eradicate, 2 Eradicates and a Hypno, and there's a couple other ones that are going to get art really soon. I love that process.
Like, yeah, for you specifically, I made sure that she drew you with your Venomoth and everything, and for my character, I put together with my little baby Aaron, because Aaron's my favorite Pokemon, so I felt like that was kind of cute.
Nice. Aaron is an awesome Pokemon. As a kid, I loved it. It's so cool. When I first saw it, I was just like, I have to have that. I remember catching it in Granite Cave.
I know you probably talked about your story with Venomoth being like related to Butterfree, and that's why you used it, but do you want me to tell you about why Aaron's like my favorite Pokemon?
Yeah, sure.
Weirdly enough, when I played Hoenn for the first time, when I went into Granite Cave, I had the Pure Mirror Ball that you get access to after you buy 10 Pokeballs. I didn't know that was a thing at the time. I just thought picked up a random Pokeball. Like, okay. And when I got in there, the Aaron I found was a girl Aaron. And when I caught it with the Premier Ball, I thought it looked aesthetically really nice. I'm not big into aesthetics with Pokeballs and all that. But Aaron, I felt like it looked really nice with the Premier Ball. And so every time I go to catch an Aaron now, I always make sure to carry a Premier Ball. Because I want to catch the same Aaron in a Premier Ball.
That's awesome. By the way, the Premier Ball is my favorite Pokeball. I love it. Red and white, such a good aesthetic for a Pokeball. And also, yeah, it is a good aesthetic for having an Aaron.
I just thought it was weird. Like, my brain was just like, me happy with this choice. And does your Venomoth have a canonical nickname that you use for it? Or do you not think about stuff like that?
I have not actually thought about like a canonical nickname for it. I should probably do that.
Because for my Aaron, like I said, since it's always a girl, I nickname her April. Don't know why. None of my friends' names are April. Nobody I know that is an April looks like an Aaron. I just feel like April. Like, it's such a weird... You were an April to me. I don't know why. I mean,
it's a good nickname. It's a good nickname.
Here's some questions I want to ask about yourself. What would you say is your greatest strength, and what would you say is your greatest weakness?
I think my greatest strength is also my greatest weakness. I think it's kind of a double-edged sword. So I have extreme ability to hyperfixate and hyperfocus on things that I'm really interested in. So that's great when making Pokemon videos turns out to be my living, because I can spend endless hours just sitting here grinding out Pokemon Yellow, playthrough after playthrough after playthrough. I'm having a great time, loving every moment of it. But then so that's definitely a strength, because I can put a lot of hours in. I feel like I'm decently detail oriented when I'm doing something that I'm really interested in, and I also I have this drive and motivation to just get back to it every day and keep going. But I think this also turns into a bit of a weakness when there's like real life stuff that I need to take care of, and it's like, you gotta pay these bills, and like, you gotta go to this appointment, and I'm like, I don't want to do any of that. It is not interesting. I want to sit down, work on my overlay, and play, I don't know, Pinsir for like the 4th time. So yeah, I think like my mom always called it my obsession. Like, I would be obsessed with something, and it would be just like the thing that I was doing, and I would only do that and nothing else for like months and months and months, sometimes years. In this case with Pokemon, it's been like 20 years, so like it's just gonna keep going. But I think it's like on one side it's like drive and motivation, and on the other side it's like it prevents me from doing some of the things that I need to do to function in regular life.
Like, one thing that I have, I guess it's similar, but not quite, I guess. I don't know how to describe it, but I'm very focused on anime and manga. Like, my whole YouTube channel is, like, focused around, like, that in reciprocal. And I like Pokemon especially because of the anime and the video games. And that's my hyperfixation with that, because the only video games I truly enjoy is Pokemon. And people are like, oh, you gotta play these video games. I'm like, no, Pokemon. I can't go anywhere else but Pokemon. People are like, you need to play something else. I'm like, no. Yeah, I was just gonna say, I can really relate to that. Like, other video games, there was a few titles that I've got into over my life. Like, I played a decent amount of Halo growing up. I played StarCraft 2, some Diablo 2, but outside of those games, I've never really found something that I am as drawn into as I am with Pokemon. Maybe StarCraft. That would be the only one that would rival Pokemon in terms of like how much energy and time I was able to put into it. And nowadays people are like, hey, you should like play a different game just to relax from the channel. I'm like, that sounds so stressful. The most relaxing thing I could do right now is like pick up Pokemon Yellow and play with a Pokemon I've already done. That sounds like pure bliss. I just want to, like, if I can sit down and just play the game with all the Pokemon that I've already played over again, I'm gonna be really happy. Yeah. Like, just to show how obsessive I am with Pokemon, since the pandemic, I've really, like, told myself, hey, I want to see how each one of these guys plays. And I've decided to play with every single Pokemon, like, even the mythicals, just to see how they function. And if someone said, hey, how does this Pokemon work? I'm like, oh, it works like this. And they're like, how do you know? I'm like, I played it a lot.
Yeah, that's like every time I do a new playthrough, like a playthrough with an actual team, usually when I do it like playthrough for casual, that kind of thing, I always pick Pokemon that I've never used before. It's like a rule that I have for myself. It's like you can put no Pokemon on your team that you have previously used. So I have to go out of my way to find new Pokemon and make them work on my team. It's just like a fun problem to solve, and it's really fun trying out new Pokemon and just like seeing what its abilities are and seeing how it fares in a playthrough.
Yeah, I haven't posted anything online, like video-wise, because I'm still trying to work out the software for myself. But one thing that I call myself, like to my friends online, is Pokemon MacGyver, because I'm like, hey, just give me 6 Pokemon and go nuts. Just tell me to go nuts and I will. Like, the last playthrough I did was in the Hoenn games, and I played through the game as Team Rocket. And my friends were like, oh, that's going to be super challenging. You're going to hit so many walls. And the only wall I ever hit in the whole game was through badges 1 to 3, because for whatever reason, Game Freak didn't put any like Pokemon that Jesse and James used up until badge 3, besides Wurmple. So all I had access to battling the game with was Dustox for the first 3 gyms.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, Dustox is not very good. To be fair, it's not very good. I tried using it in my first Hoenn playthrough because I was like, oh, it's kind of like Butterfree. And then I was like, no, this thing is not like Butterfree. It's much worse.
Oh, tell me about it. The weirdest playthrough I ever did so far was one I did in Ultra Sun and Moon. And I decided to do no new moves, not even Z moves. I was just strictly limiting myself to the moves that the Pokemon had access to. And when Ultra Necrozma came up, my friends were like, how are you going to beat that thing? That thing is like a monster. And so I did the speedrun strat of Zoroark, but since it didn't have access to false attack, I was like, I'm going to lower its defense with Leer, and then send out a self-destruct Pokemon. So basically I threw a grenade at its face to knock it out.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that Ultra Necrozma is like, it's so good. It's so good. Oh my gosh. I remember getting so frustrated with that thing because it just one-shot everything. It has such good type coverage on its moveset, and it's so powerful in terms of its base stats. Oh man, talking about that makes me want to go back and play Gen 7.
The weirdest thing about that thing, though, is just to give you like a playthrough warning if you want to challenge it, think Gen 1 like Smart AI, because that's all that thing has. For whatever reason, they programmed that thing with Gen 1 Smart AI, so you're half like that's why Zoroark's so good at tricking it, because it's like, oh, how do you beat it? You trick it.
Okay.
I'm going to say another weird question, but I think they're all kind of odd questions when I wrote them down. But what is your least favorite word, and what is your favorite word?
Honestly, I get really frustrated by words in general. I don't know if I have a favorite word. I say a lot of the words so and now and then on the channel. So I try to use those words less. Maybe those are my least favorite words. I don't know. They're like, I'm trying to be more concise in general when I talk on the channel. I do have some words that I avoid in certain situations. The word switch, whenever I decide to use a different move. Yeah, in general, I'm just not very good with words. I was always better at math and not very good with writing and that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I can just take the easy out and say like moist is my least favorite word.
Here's something that I'd like to ask. What do you like, you're talking about like being stuck in your comfort zone in Pokemon. Is there like any like specific game that you like to go outside of Pokemon, or is it just strictly Pokemon for you?
Right now with video games, it is just Pokemon. I am quite literally playing nothing else. Although my fiance and I have, over the last like couple weeks, we have got back into playing Magic the Gathering together. I used to play a ton of Magic and go to drafts every week. Yeah, so I really like playing Magic. I'm probably going to be playing a lot more Magic in the coming days. And playing Magic has got me back into collecting Pokemon cards. So I got my old binder out today and looked through all of my base set jungle and fossil cards, which was really fun.
That's cool. As somebody who never played the card game for Pokemon, someone told me it's a lot like Magic. Would you say that's true, or would you say that's a false equivalent?
I have not played the Pokemon card game since probably 1999. I have no idea what it's like. I think from my experience with it is that Pokemon card game seems a little bit more straightforward, whereas Magic seems more complicated and strategic. I'm not sure though, like again, like I really don't know how the game works. I mostly collect the Pokemon cards because I like collecting things, and then I like to play Magic for the gameplay aspect.
But it's such a weird thing for me. Do you have any interests outside of the video games? Like, do you play any music? Do you like have a hobby like bug collecting?
Well, I'm a bug collector within Pokemon, but definitely not outside of Pokemon. Basically, I turn my hobbies in some way into my job. So like Pokemon was definitely my hobby, and then it kind of became my job now. Before that, I was a musician, and I went to university to do performance and composition. So I used to perform and write music, and that for a long time was my passion, and then that became my job. So I worked professionally as a musician for like 7 years, 8 years, and then after that started the channel, and now I'm a Pokemon content creator. So it tends to be because I've been really lucky and privileged to be in a place where like my passions have turned into things that I can make money doing. It tends to be the case I don't really like hobbies outside of that, I guess, like playing Magic the Gathering right now and collecting Pokemon cards, but like eventually I'm probably going to make a Pokemon card collecting video, and then it'll just be part of the job. So yeah, I feel like the line between my job and my hobbies is like very blurred in my life. It's kind of hard to separate like my passions from my work, and me from my passions and my work. We're all like, it's all kind of just one and the same thing.
Any advice to people listening to you, because like who are interested in like doing something similar to like what you do? Is there any advice you would give them?
Yeah, I think the one really important thing is like if you want to start, you might be able to hear him, but Churro, my cat, is making a bunch of noise in the background, so sorry. But if anyone like wants to do YouTube or something like that, I think that the most important piece of advice is just like don't set out to make it a job. Go into YouTube and make videos that you like making, videos that you really enjoy making, just because you're making the video. Don't make a video because you think that a lot of people are going to watch it, because what you'll notice if you actually do get successful is that then you will be stuck making those videos, and you don't want to be stuck making a video that you don't like to make. Because if you try to make something you like, but your audience expects you to make something different, then your audience is going to go away, and then you're not going to have the success that you perceived that you had built. So I would really suggest like make the stuff you want to make and don't expect it to become a job or a source of income. That way you'll at least continue enjoying it, and if it does manage to like attract some small degree of an audience or a large audience or a huge audience, then at least you're making something that you love to make, and it'll be effortless to show up for work to make those videos. I got lucky that way, and it really did feel like luck. I did not do anything special to make my content attract people to watch it. I just made some videos, people showed up, started watching, and the rest is history. But I was lucky because I'm making videos that I absolutely love making.
Is there anything else you would like to talk about?
I really want, like, go check out Sarina Vail on Twitter. They do great art. Yeah, if you need an avatar or one of your favorite Pokemon drawn, highly recommend it. Also, if you want Generation 1 style art, check out I'm Big Dave 2, like T-O-O, on Twitter, because he does some excellent, like, watercolor style art, and there's going to be a bunch of his art showing up on my channel in the future when I start playing a lot of Pokemon Blue. Also, there are a lot of other really small Pokemon Challenge solo runners that are working incredibly hard out there. So I'm thinking of people like VanMan, RBY Pokemon Challenges, Gym Leader Matt, Speedrunner 0218. I'm gonna miss people. I'm so sorry. But those are the people I can think of right now. Exceptional is another one, like Exceptional. He's doing some great stuff. I would suggest checking out a bunch of different people, because if you like my content and you're in the situation where you're like, I wish this guy released more, there's other people out there making content too, so go show them some love.
Awesome. And yeah, I'll leave descriptions to like the channel artist, his channel, my channel, all that Linktree stuff will be in the description of this video. Please check them out if you're at all interested, and I'll leave links to all the people he's mentioned. just now in the description box below as well. We'll check them all out. And thank you all for coming in today. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And thank you, Scott, for coming on today. I greatly appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.